Prince Joshua, known as PJ, and his 7-year-old friend Michaela Capers were stabbed in an elevator in the Boulevard houses. Michaela survived. Ex-convict Daniel St. Hubert is charged with the crime.
It's never enough security if you ask me.
There were no security cameras at the time of the attack. Since the tragedy, the city ordered more to be installed, but there aren't enough funds to adequately equip all of the housing projects. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries says the federal government needs to help. He introduced legislation right before Congress recessed this month called PJ's Act.
It makes no sense that the federal government currently does not help public housing residents live in safety and security. PJ's Act is designed to change that.
The bill allows for the city's housing authority to tap into billions available under the Community Development Block Grant Program.
It's important to note that the House Republican budget is a product of the same type of extreme mentality and reckless mindset that shut down the government for 16 days. House Republicans have once again decided to balance the budget on the backs of children, young Americans, college students, working families, and the middle class.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's my honor and my privilege to represent the people of the 8th Congressional District and to stand before you today to say Brooklyn stands with Israel. And not only Brooklyn stands with Israel, the New York Congressional Delegation stands with Israel. And not only the Congressional Delegation, but the House of Representatives stands with Israel. The United States of America will continue to stand with Israel.
A Revolutionary War crypt in Brooklyn's Fort Greene Park is a step closer to being named a national monument. The House passed a bill requiring the National Park Service to do a study of the prison ship Martyrs Monument, which holds the remains of more than 11,000 Continental Army soldiers. All of the troops died aboard British ships anchored in New York Harbor, where they were held as prisoners of war. Congressman Hakeem Jeffries sponsored the House bill.
This is a substantial step toward making sure that these American Revolutionary War heroes will have their stories and their legacies told, preserved, and respected.
Senator Kirsten Gillibrand plans to introduce the bill in the Senate. The prison ship monument opened in 1908.
We should be extending a helping hand to these individuals, but instead we have slapped them in the face in a manner that is disrespectful of the compassion of the American people. It is time to do the right thing and to renew unemployment insurance so that we can rescue those Americans left behind on the battlefield of the Great Recession.
Now, there are some in this caucus, some in this institution, who want to lay blame for this crisis at the feet of the Obama administration. This is not a surprising development because these individuals are members of the BBO caucus, the Blame Barack Obama caucus. Whenever anything happens in this country or in this world, they want to blame the President of the United States.
Mr. Speaker, this lawsuit is nothing more than a waste of time and a cover-up with respect to the House Republicans' failure to effectively govern. You have failed to create jobs. You have failed to increase the minimum wage. You have failed to deal with our broken immigration system. You have failed to extend unemployment insurance for the millions of Americans who have been left on the battlefield of the Great Recession. You have failed to deal with our crumbling transportation and infrastructure system. Mr. Speaker, your majority has failed to do what is in the best interest of the American people.
Rams players are not the only ones who've embraced the hands-up gesture of protest. Last night, members of the Congressional Black Caucus took to the floor of the House, raised their hands in a show of solidarity, and called on Congress not to run away from the problems exposed by the killing of Mike Brown. Joining me now is one of the people you just saw there, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from New York. And Congressman, Bill O'Reilly was saying last night that the people are using that gesture, and what that gesture means is they think that white cops are murdering black men everywhere indiscriminately on a warpath. And I want to ask if that's what you mean by that gesture.
Well, Chris, good evening. And it's not surprising that the conservative entertainment complex would completely misunderstand the point. Hands Up, Don't Shoot is a rallying cry that is being embraced by people all over the country who are fed up with police brutality, fed up with young, unarmed African Americans being killed by police officers all across the United States of America. fed up with the lack of accountability from the judicial system that often fails to properly prosecute and/or convict police officers who appear to have engaged in the use of excessive force, and just fed up with racial profiling in the context of the manner in which too many law enforcement officers interact with communities of color. This problem, I'm hopeful that the police commissioner will be willing to take a complete look, not just at retraining, that's a good step in the right direction, but it's his broken windows policing strategy, which aggressively targets nuisance violations, particularly in communities of color, that led to this encounter, and that's a big problem. In other words, this would not have occurred unless those officers were instructed to aggressively police the sale of loose, untaxed cigarettes. That's not something that New York Police Department resources should be spent on. Perhaps the New York State Tax Department. We want the New York City Police Department to go after persistent criminals, gangbangers, and others who really pose a threat to the well-being and to the public safety of the people in New York.
The decision by a grand jury not to indict in the death of Eric Garner is a miscarriage of justice. It's an outrage. It's a disgrace. It's a blow to our democracy. And it should shock the conscience of every single American who cares about justice and fair play, because this was captured on video. And so it's inexplicable that this grand jury could not return a single charge. This grand jury couldn't return a charge for assault. This grand jury couldn't return a charge for involuntary manslaughter. This grand jury couldn't return a charge for criminally negligent homicide. This grand jury couldn't return a charge for reckless endangerment of human life. This grand jury couldn't even see fit to charge this officer with a misdemeanor. What more does America need to see?